Welcome to Will's Personal Development Show podcast. My name is Will, and let's get started. In this episode, we are talking about relaxation. And this question was spurred by a email subscriber. I sent out email asking them to help me help them. I asked them, I usually don't get too much feedback lately from my readers, so if I could reach out and ask for what you need help on, I can help answer that. And so someone by the name of Joseph wrote in, and he asked specifically for effective relaxation tips, efficient and effective relaxation tips. And this is one of his biggest problems that he's struggling with. The main idea here is that he says, I have a hard time de-stressing after work besides wasting my time away watching TV. I couldn't find any posts about this on your site, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the most effective and efficient relaxation techniques. It would be great just to take a few minutes to de-stress, then get back to doing productive things in life. So I think this is a great question on many accounts, especially since, I definitely could improve on this as well. So, of course, I've come across some literature on this topic, just going through many personal development books and so forth. Sometimes relaxing or getting to a certain state of mind or emotional state is something that gets mentioned in these books because they talk about mental strength or discipline or certain techniques you can get to bring up a certain state of mind for your life, whether you're trying to become an athlete or just have that strong state of mind to do whatever you want to do. And so I've come across some techniques, and I also have some literature, scientific literature from certain experiments that I found. And you can find these and more yourself by going to websites such as PubMed and Google Scholar. Social media and the internet is fine in another way, but oftentimes they borrow from the primary sources, which are these scientific empirical research that's the most trusted and most solid experiments rather than just public opinion. And so, just going straight to the source yourself could be very useful. Now, I do have some of that literature from the science that I want to share later on in this podcast. And I did give Joseph a very quick answer, an email response, but I did tell him that the podcast would be coming. And I want to dive into a lot more detail in this episode. So first and foremost, before we dive into like tactics and stuff, I do want to acknowledge, and I think it's important to acknowledge the whole idea that, you have to forgive yourself, you have to be kind to yourself, and know that, everyone struggles with this. If you're struggling with a lot of stress or just like you're dealing with moments when you want to relax more and there's a anxiety in you, or you have these feelings that are fluttering, everyone has that, and that comes up from time to time. So it's a human thing, and that's okay, but there are ways of dealing with it properly. And sometimes stress is a sign that maybe you need to change your life. If you're dealing with excessive, extreme amounts of stress on a daily basis, I've known people like that. Well, sometimes that's just not good for your health, your body, your mind, and it's a sign that you need to switch jobs. And there's a whole difference between loving high stress situations and hating high stress situations. You have to love the job you do, and sometimes people are very obvious and honest, and they say they hate it and they want to switch, and so that's a sign to switch jobs. Other times, they're trying to convince themselves, I still love this job even though it's high stress, and they really hate the job. Or, maybe they love it but not enough to give up all the other stuff, family, a good health, and they have to make that choice to move on to something else, and that's the best thing to do in the long term. And those who don't, they end up suffering from regret and, permanent health issues. So keep that in mind as well. I am assuming that you aren't in those extreme situations. You just have some level of stress that you would like to kind of knock out in more effective ways, rather than just kind of bearing with it or, just watching TV endlessly. Now I've been there too, and I would say, right now, especially as I'm filming this in quarantine, yeah, I definitely had to deal with it in different ways, and it's not just stress, but the lifestyle switches. Currently, as I'm filming this in the COVID-19 pandemic quarantine, sure, the quarantine's kind of lifted since, at least in the US, everyone's kind of been much more lackadaisical about it and been going out like normal. However, for me, I would say I'm kind of the same, but I'm spending more time inside, not venturing out too much, and just going on walks still, but still spending more time inside than normal. Which means I've switched up my routine and uh, found that I am watching more TV and doing a lot of binge watching. And so that's something that you also have to keep in mind. It's not just about the techniques, it's about how is your lifestyle changing, what should you watch out for. And we're currently in a golden age for television, thanks to streaming services and the internet. And what that means is, we can binge watch a show that otherwise was partitioned out, to be watched once a week. And then they would throw out a cliffhanger, release the show live, and then you wouldn't be able to see the next episode until a week later. And that was how it was, and they relied on that in commercials to make their money. But now, a lot of these shows, especially if you're not watching them the season that they air, they end up being able to be bingeable within 10 hours in one day. And of course, that gets a different kind of feel to the show, but also kind of overload your mind with this information, this entertainment. And I know for sure, it's happened to me. I've been watching Survivor for the first time, and it's entertaining, and I also get to kind of see the social intelligence gameplay at play and see how that works out. But it makes me just kind of it overloads my mind, and you kind of feel just sick afterwards. After watching several hours, you're like, I just feel so lethargic and sick, and my mind feels like mush. Even though it was entertaining and stuff, sometimes you're like, you just don't feel good afterwards. And so you have to keep that in mind. It's kind of like eating bad Chinese food after, low quality Chinese food with bad ingredients. If it's not high ingredient, high quality Chinese food, you feel like mush right afterwards. So you have to be careful about what you're doing and how much you want to limit of that. Not just TV and the obvious things like social media, but how else are you kind of consuming your life? What's causing that angst? And knowing that you don't have to eliminate all of it. Some of it is part of life. Having a life that's too carefree and lack of stress is not a life of success. You're probably hiding away from your problems or not challenging yourself enough to hit that next level. Some stress is good. It challenges you. It excites you. It works your mind. So don't get in your head that you need no stress and you just need to push it all away with relaxation techniques, and that because that will lead to some hard times as well. So there's that. I just want to kind of reveal a personal story before we dive into the kind of methodical tips here, and that's with me with watching Survivor recently. So essentially, I got into Survivor because I had some more free time, and it was one of the biggest TV shows of the last couple of generations. I heard there's a lot of good social intelligence plays, kind of like Game of Thrones. There's a lot of methodical plays because you vote people out until there's one left. And I finally got to watch a couple seasons, and it was very intense. There were parts I didn't like. It's very cutthroat, and then you're like throwing people under the bus, and I don't like how it promotes this like devastating behavior. But I also respect how it's kind of captured the hearts and minds of millions of people for generations and stayed on aired. And if anything, their prize pools have gotten larger and larger every season to $2 million. The social intelligence play is incredible. And I bring this up because after watching that show and going through, about two seasons, give or take, and seeing, people bond and the emotional moments, but also the devastating trickery. I felt a certain connection to the cast and some of the people, and it was almost like we also built the bond as well. And then others on the show built the bond, and you could see them crying when they saw their family because, like, halfway through, um, they got to see their family as a little gift because they're on this island alone for around 30 days. And so it's very touching to see this, and they're starving and all this stuff, and they're crying when they see their family. And it got me very emotional, but also it got me into a flurry of emotions after the thing finished. Um, Part of me felt kind of stressed. Part of me felt kind of a wreck in a way. And it just didn't feel good. It was such a mix of emotions that I couldn't even pinpoint them down. But some of it was kind of like, it was a good feeling just to see that all. But then a devastating feeling for me because I don't necessarily have that family that I've built in life yet, given my stage in life and everything else going on. Um, and so essentially, I had this huge flurry of horrible emotions, some good, some bad, just some a wreck. Like, wow, now that's done with. What do I do with my life now? I'm just this guy alone here. I don't have this emotional family, a wife and child. Well, at least I have my parents and stuff. And so, long story short, I have this whole huge flurry of things to deal with. Not just stress, some stress, but all this other stuff. And it reminded me of all the other times in my life that I've had to deal with all these issues and the relaxation techniques that I've used to deal with them. So I've realized that I've come to kind of be able to prepare for these situations and find different ways of dealing with them. And that preparation and kind of knowledge of, oh, I've experienced this before and I know how to deal with it, kind of will help you out in life. Because I think some people just kind of like, they have these feelings and it sucks, and then they don't know how to deal with it, or they work out ways of dealing with it on a habitual basis that may or may not be the best ways, and then they just stick with that, just kind of living life ineffectively. So I'm very thankful for you for sending this question in so I can share what I have to say, and then for everyone else to kind of share what they have to say, because this is a community. Feel free to write into me, and then maybe we'll do a follow-up video or article where I can talk more about it and share your thoughts as well. So, there's that, and I just want to say, I used my techniques to kind of deal with that, and I still am using them. I'm using them now, and you'll see what those are. And I think it's not just about some technique to kind of wash that away. It's about piecing it apart and figuring it out in a therapeutical way. So I think I want to start off by jumping into my techniques, and then we'll jump into the science. So I think one thing I've discovered is not just through the research and the experts, but through communities where, they ask questions to their tribes. I remember in a Facebook group, I can't even remember which one because I'm part of many, but it was a few months ago, and some of them are personal development related. It was either a Facebook group or one of these other personal development things that I follow, and they asked their audience, maybe it was on Twitter, but they asked them, what do you do to relax, wind down, enjoy life? And I looked at the responses because, hundreds of people left their comments. The responses varied. And yes, there were certain themes among them for sure. And I want to dive into those themes. But I think the first lesson I want to impart on you is that it varies from person to person. So I wouldn't suggest you follow exactly what I do, but maybe borrow maybe the general theme or feeling or idea of some of them to get ideas for yourself. However, just keep that in mind. It's different for every person, but you may find that there's a certain feeling or idea that a lot of these different practices have that kind of embody the same thing. So I saw a lot of people in the comments say stuff like meditation, family time, yoga, bubble bath, taking a walk, playing guitar. Music was a big one, playing some type of instrument. And so notice how varied they are, but at the same time, uh, think about how they kind of work. Some people said painting, art, uh, making music. They all have a certain kind of creative feel to them. They all have a kind of slow pace to them. I mean, you could probably pull out your own themes from them. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can kind of see where they kind of go for. And that was just the public's opinion. So there's the public's idea. Maybe it'll give you some ideas, but those are some things that you can use to kind of move towards that. I've been painting a bit for the first time this year, acrylic painting. I haven't painted since over 10 years ago, so that was very fun, but that's pricey. And so what else can you do? Maybe it's an instrument. You buy a guitar, you have that for the rest of your life, or maybe it's a piano. Maybe it's just listening to music for you. Others, it's making music. I find making music a hassle. So, it's on my mind, but I wouldn't call it relaxing to that extent. And so those are some ideas. I found bubble baths to be great. I've been trying a lot of new things, in fact. So it's not just about things you've always done, although that's an option. It's also trying out new things. So I've been experimenting a lot with scented candles and bubble baths because I've never had that luxury. And I've also had scented bath bombs and soaps just to kind of get a feel for how that works. And I find like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's hit or miss. I found some things work better than others. The scented candles seem to work the best out of everything. And that's just me. That's just how I deal with it. But you can get the sense for how it is. Also notice the different senses that they're picking up. There's sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And so keep that in mind. That's a different way of splitting it up. You may have just been focusing on one when there's a whole category of other senses that could be of value to you. So candles, of course, are smell. And most people just kind of forgo that. They forgo the smell aspect of it. And so I know certain candle companies, Yankee Candle, they have hundreds of scents. And so I like to go there and just like smell a bunch of candles, pick out the scent that I like the most, and then buy a candle. And that scent's different for everyone based off their childhood or whatever triggers that. And I think that can calm you down. So there's also taste, taste and touch. Maybe it's buying certain types of comforters or bed sheets for your house, maybe certain colors of that, and then just laying in that, or a hammock of some sort. Taste, of course, cooking certain types of food and tasting them, certain foods, maybe even pre-cooked or pre-made for you, like pistachio ice cream, mochi ice cream of some sort. Maybe that's what cools you down. It is different for different people, but just me saying these things kind of calms me down. I can almost picture the taste of a ice cold mochi ice cream on a summer's day, and how it kind of melts in your mouth and it has that nice flavor. My favorite's green tea. So yeah, breaking out by the five senses is another way of finding techniques to relax you. But notice how the theme is kind of this slow pace, this satisfying feeling that you kind of have for yourself. Okay, so there's that, and the last thing I want to say is, for me, myself, I like to use also like meditation or some type of related activity. Meditation is its own thing, but focusing on the breath can be done at the same time in different ways, through yoga, through exercise. But if you're not focusing just on the breath and getting thoughts out of your mind, it's not really meditation if you're talking and chatting while going on a run. That's exercise, but that's not meditation verbatim. Some people make the mistake of thinking that is. They'll say running is my meditation. Only if you're doing meditative-like activities while running. And so exercise can get meditative if you're focused and present in just the exercise and you don't let your thoughts wander. So I also exercise. You can also do yoga, Pilates, bar, all sorts of stuff as well. That can be a de-stressor. I've dabbled with all those things: running, rowing, CrossFit, all sorts of exercise. And so that whatever works for you, that's another thing. But for me, I think meditation is my go-to. It's one of the easiest ways to immediately calm down my mind and then focus on a state of kind of happiness and minimalism, and just reminding me that I really don't need anything else. I am worthy enough, happy as I am right now here with you. It gets me very present. It's not easy though, and I'm still a beginner in meditation, and I do kind of fall off for many weeks on end. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to be perfect at any of this. So that's that. I would say I'm kind of going quickly through what I have to do, just because I want to get to the scientific aspects of it. But I would say those are the big things that I want to cover. And I think the last thing would be any type of therapeutic thing, like literally like therapy-like stuff. So, for example, me talking out the personal issues that I do want to share on a podcast like this, or audio recording, or journal, or just to myself in my room, that helps out. And you don't need to share it with the world. If you don't want to publish it on the internet, you don't have to. You can just journal it to yourself, or kind of talk it out, or record it out and then delete it afterwards, whatever you want to do. But I find that, verbalizing it, or some people like to write it down or type it out, but verbalizing it, for me personally, helps me piece together exactly why I'm stressed. And then that helps my mind work out, okay, why does this stress me? Is this really something worth stressing out over? And then it turns into this confusing ball of emotions, and it's something that's more parsable. So to jump back to my survivor example, after I've kind of calmed down and thought it out and talked it out with you, I realized, okay, I have a better understanding of this. And, while it is kind of crazy what that show can do to a reader or watcher, I realized, okay, well, that's them. They're all happy. They're back with their family, and, they all won. In a way, because it was the winter season that I was watching. So essentially, what's there to be sad about? Like, you're sad that you don't get to watch them anymore, that you've lost a bond, but you never really had a bond with them. They were contestants and they had their families. So, they're happy as well. So you don't have to feel bad for them anymore, because they're back with their families, and it was just a 30-day game show. And then on top of that, despite the emotional treachery and stuff, they're back to their world. They all won a lot of money from the game, and, they're back with their family. And so you don't have to feel bad about that. And then you can see how I'm kind of parsing out, like, okay, like, this is a ball of emotions, but maybe those emotions don't necessarily make sense in this moment. Maybe some do. And how do you deal with that? And so then you can get to kind of de-stress and relax off these emotions. It doesn't have to be something as trivial as a game show to spark a mess of emotions. Maybe it's your job, your stressful job, or some personal family fight you have. And so for me, now that I've parsed out my emotions, I realize, oh, okay, I'm mostly feeling bad because, I wish I had those familial bonds and starting of that family, and those connections that they had on the show, because it caused them to cry. It caused them all sorts of love and support, but also a lot of joy when they saw their families again. So then, I can parse it together like, oh, okay, well, one day I'll start my family, but, that doesn't mean I have to despair because I don't have that now. Okay, so I think I belabored that point enough. Let's jump into some of the scientific research. I want to start with harvard.edu. There's 6 ways they suggested that you can use relaxation to de-stress. This comes from the Harvard Med School, and a cardiologist by the name of Dr. Herbert Benson. You can invoke a relaxation response. And this response was founded in the 1970s. It's a state of profound rest that can be elicited in many ways. So the first way is through breath focus. Breath focus is basically the most basic form of meditation, essentially. So, you take long, slow, deep breaths and you gently disengage your mind from distracting thoughts and sensations. I mean, we've heard this before. Body scans. You can argue that meditation, certain forms of meditation do this as well. If you'd use the Insight Timer app, which is free, they have body scan guided meditations. Instead of focusing on your breath, you're focusing on kind of relaxing parts of your muscles one by one usually. After a few minutes of breathing, you move kind of through your body. So that's another form. Guided imagery. So this, at least, okay, this time it's not meditation for once. For those who don't want meditation, it's more about just picturing thoughts in your mind, soothing scenes, places, experiences, waterfalls, whatever you want to do. Now, I know you don't want a meditation thing, but this imagery stuff works really well with the Insight Timer app, since they have a whole library of free, like, I guess you could call it like jungle or forest sounds. So, it's not meditation, it's just like forest sounds. So for those who don't like meditation, like, you could still play that off the Insight Timer app, and that can calm you down. I personally like a mix of like Amazon jungle and like beaches. Some people like different things, waterfalls and lakes. Personal preference. I just find like a lake to be kind of boring to me. I don't want to go on vacation to a lake, but some people do. Number 4 is mindfulness meditation. I've talked about this earlier, but it's a different form of mindful meditation that's more focused on being mindful. And you can be mindful of different things. The breath, the feet. You could do a walking mindfulness meditation as you walk. You can search that up. I've done a lot of discussion on what mindfulness is already, and the world has really as well. So next one would be yoga, tai chi, qigong. That's going to my ancestral roots, Indian, Chinese forms of rhythmic breathing. This is something that old people do a lot, especially in the Chinese community. But you could start young. I think test it out. I've tried it out, and it's interesting. It could help you with balance, flexibility, or just calm. And then the next one would be repetitive prayer. So now we're kind of going into more of a religious thing, but prayer of some sort, even just spiritual prayer, can be helpful as well. Moving on to mayoclinic.org, another very reputable website on science and health. There's a few types of relaxation that they mention. Autogenic, which is something that comes within you. You use your imagery and body awareness to reduce stress. So that's something we've kind of covered. Progressive muscle relaxation. So I think this is a more science-based approach to the body scan we mentioned earlier. This one is more about slowly tensing and relaxing each muscle group. So, for example, start with your neck, tense it up, bring it down to your chest, and then bring it all the way up and relax. And then you move on to your pecs, your stomach, your butt muscles, and so forth. And it's recommending tensing for 5 seconds and then relaxing for 30 seconds and repeating. And then the final form is a visualization of some sort, which may include sights, sound, smell, and touch. Oceans, salt water crashing on waves, and so forth. Quite frankly, I like this one because it's touching on other senses, not just your mind, picturing it in your mind. Maybe you could get some salt water or play that Insight Timer app to get the whole thing moving. Frankly, if you're rich enough, I would just, why visualize it rather than just have it? If you could live by a beach or a jungle and that's what you enjoy, that's something that could work. And I'm sure there's somewhat affordable ways of doing this to an extent. Maybe it's a road trip to another state or state park, or Maybe it's to a beach one day or something. I mean, or you could fly to Thailand. I mean, I hear Thailand is super cheap, and that's a way of getting a really cheap beach visit. So there you have it in terms of Mayo Clinic's suggestions. I'm going to move on to some actual scientific literature. In this one, we're going to be touching on a study done by Epley, Abrams, and Shear, the differential effects of relaxation techniques on trait anxiety, a meta-analysis. So I'm reading the abstract to the study here. Hand and computer searches located studies on the effects of relaxation techniques. Most of the treatments produce similar effects, except that Transcendental Meditation has significantly larger effect size, a p of less than 0.005, and meditation that included concentration has significantly smaller effect. Correlations with effect size were calculated for many variables, e.g. population age, sex, experimental design duration, hours of treatment, pre-test anxiety, demand characteristics, experimenter attitude, and so on and so forth. Controlling for possible confounding variables did not alter overall conclusions. The difference in effect sizes between treatments was maintained. So, I for one have heard about Transcendental Meditation. That's something that Ray Dalio does. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger did it a little bit when he was younger. I'm more of a breath meditator. Transcendental, I hear it gets a little more complicated and kind of goes into kind of touching on the kind of like iceberg effect, where there's like, there's a little bit on top of the water and then a lot deeper down. So generally speaking, I think meditation has some merits here. There's a lot of science behind meditation. I've written articles about it and its effect. So that's one thing. Now let's move on to another research study. This time we have one titled The Use of Meditation, Relaxation Techniques. This study was done by Patricia, PhD, Collins, Gilbert, Benson, Herbert, Robinson, Harry, Loring, a lot of people. And here's what the abstract says. The efficacy of meditation relaxation techniques has been widely researched in the laboratory, but their effectiveness for management of stress in organizational settings is still relatively unexplored. The present study compared relaxation and control conditions as part of a program of stress reduction in industry. So they had 154 New York employees self-selected for stress learned one of three techniques: clinically standardized meditation, respiratory one-method meditation, or progressive relaxation, or served as waiting list controls. Now, I love that they chose New York telephone employees. If anyone's stressed, it's probably, people in one of the most hectic cities in the world. Maybe or maybe not. I mean, you probably have some people who are pretty chill in New York still, or they just have very simple jobs. But regardless, despite the small sample size, I was curious to see how this study progresses. So at 5.5 months, the treatment group showed clinical improvements in self-reported symptoms of stress, but only the meditation groups showed significantly more symptom reduction than the controls. The meditation groups had a 78% compliance rate at 5.5 months with treatment effect, seeing whether subjects practice their techniques frequently or occasionally. The safe and inexpensive semi-automated meditation training has considerable value for stress management programs in organizational settings. So that's a great sign. Meditation is free, it's not expensive, it's accessible, it's proven effective, and so I think it's well worth your time. I've written articles on why meditation is valuable, and I know there's a lot of people, especially peers, who just couldn't get into meditation. They think it's annoying, it's boring, it's difficult. They barely try it and they just say it's not for me. And For someone who also has to deal with a lot of impatience and doesn't like that sort of boring stuff, I had a hard time with it myself. But the scientific literature, this amount of successful people who have benefited from meditation, it just made it so obvious. I wrote a whole article on 22 celebrities and successful athletes who meditate. And so I figured, it has to be worth it. So I had to just kind of push through that crap and just say, I have to do it. It's kind of disappointing and frustrating when I do see my peers and people say, I tried it, it's just not for me, or it's just too, I can't sit still for more than 2 seconds. And I hate, having to push out my thoughts and distractions. And it's frustrating because I know it would be beneficial to them, but they really didn't try hard before giving up on it. And, some of them, I think at least I have to give them credit for having an open mind to say that, yeah, it probably is useful, or maybe it is useful, but I just can't get into it. And for those people, and I'm saying this because I know there's going to be dissenters in who are listening who are just like, it's not for me. Like, I can't sit still for 2 seconds. I have to just focus on my breath, because it can get difficult, because all your thoughts come in, you have to push them away. And you'd be surprised how many thoughts come into your brain. But it's not about that. It's about your dedication to this. And as I mentioned, I've fallen off on multiple occasions, and I have to get back on track. Before today, I haven't meditated for weeks. But, with that whole thing with the survivor, I had to, calm my mind a bit again. And I did it. And this study kind of supports the whole idea, because it says the group that only practiced occasionally saw a significant effect from meditation. So even though I can't keep a consistent routine up, it still has some effect. So I really recommend that you keep at it, and you never know, you can break through. There's 2 great people who have written multiple books on meditation, and they're both very successful, and they both have these incredible books for people who are skeptics to meditation and on their effects. So the first author, his name's Russell Simmons. He's a very successful, wealthy, famous music producer who has, written books on the power of meditation. Search him up, you'll find him. There's another guy by the name of Dan Harris, and he has written 2 books on meditation, 10% Happier and Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. The second one has a more kind of quick, concise feel to it, and it just goes through every kind of objection you can have, and his counter argument to that, and why you should still continue meditating. It's kind of his persuasion, case book, his argument book. And then his first book, 10% Happier, which I read, is his life story on how he was this horribly temper-driven guy who, he wasn't horrible, but he had these moments of temper that cost him issues in his job, and how he was so super skeptical, and over time he got won over to it. Okay, so I have a couple more studies, and we'll call it a day here. And they're not just on meditation, guys. It's about just relaxation. This one's titled The Effects of Muscle Relaxation and Music Relaxation Techniques on Sleep Quality and Emotional Measures Among Individuals with Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Now, I'm assuming you don't have PTSD, but I'm curious if some of these techniques will work on you as well, especially if you don't have as much stress. I think they could. So, reading the study, it says PTSD and anxiety with lifetime prevalence of 7.8% is characterized by symptoms that develop following emotional trauma. Individuals with PTSD respond poorly to drug treatments or insomnia. Thus, the present study has 3 aims. First, to compare the efficiency of 2 relaxation techniques in alleviating insomnia. Second, to examine whether these techniques have different effects on PTSD, such as depression and anxiety. And finally, to examine how PTSD symptom severity and baseline emotional measures are related to the efficiency of these two relaxation methods. So, unfortunately, it has a small sample size. They had 13 patients with no other major neurological diseases participate. The study comprised one 7-day running in no treatment period, followed by two 7-day experimental periods. The treatments constituted either muscle relaxation or music relaxation. The treatments were randomly assigned. During each of these 3 experimental periods, subjects' sleep was continuously monitored with a wrist actigraph, and subjects were asked to fill out questionnaires concerned with a wide spectrum of issues such as sleep, depression, and anxiety. So, what happened? Analysis revealed a significant increase in objective and subjective sleep efficiency and a significant reduction in depression level following music relaxation. Moreover, following music relaxation, a highly significant negative correlation was found between improvement in objective sleep efficiency and reduction in depression scale. So it doesn't say much more about muscle relaxation, but it says basically that music relaxation seems to have been better. It has a highly significant negative correlation between improvement in objective sleep efficiency and reduction in depression scale. Music relaxation at bedtime can be used as treatment for insomnia. So there you go. If you are coming home from work, you don't have to be going to sleep to play music. You can have that playing on your phone, blaring it out, maybe on your headphones or just through the speakers on your phone. And I would have loved them to have dived into more to the genres of music that bring those relaxation. I know it probably varies depending on a person. Some people like Latin music, upbeat Latin music. I like a more smooth type of classical music, or smooth jazz really does it for me. Even mainstream pop music, depending on the song. There are certain songs I really, really don't like. They just get me more depressed. And those are those sad, depressing songs. Those certain Post Malone songs, or certain sad love stories that certain people play, Billie Eilish or whatever. They're just gonna be so sad. Taylor Swift songs. And I love a lot of the songs by those artists I mentioned. There's just other songs that I mentioned that are just super sad, and they have these sad stories that don't end well. And it's like, why? Like, it just makes me so much more depressed. For me, the lyrics really matter for a song because I actually take care into what they have to say. So, I'm guessing it's the same for you. You have to pick out what's most relaxing to you. I'm guessing it's probably not heavy metal or something crazy that's super aggressive. So pick out what works for you. I'm still experimenting with new music to see what works for me. I have a final study for you. Immediate effect of 2 yoga-based relaxation techniques on performance in a letter cancellation task. This was published in 2007. The performance in a 6-letter cancellation task was assessed with 69 males aged 18 to 48, immediately before and after 2 yoga-based relaxation techniques and a control session of equal duration. Now, I don't know what they mean by a cancellation task, but I'm assuming they had to do some type of task, and the yoga-based relaxation was used to kind of assess how much of a relaxation effect that had. I don't know if they had to write letters to someone or what that means, but here we go. So the techniques were cyclic meditation and supine rest cyclic meditation, which consists of alternating cycles of yoga postures and supine rest. And so after both practices, the net scores were significantly higher, although the magnitude of change was more after the cyclic meditation than supine rest cyclic meditation. This was reduction in score. There were reductions in scores for wrong cancelizations after cyclic meditation, but not after supine rest. The control group showed no change. The results suggest that cyclic meditation brings about a greater improvement in performance in this task, which requires selective attention, concentration, visual scanning activities, and a repetitive motor response. So it seems like the task at hand almost is like a task that you would see in one of those survivor obstacle courses in that TV show I was mentioning, which requires a repetitive motor response, concentration, constant visual scanning, selective attention. So, this is something that might even be useful for survivor contestants who want to prepare more. And it seems like this cyclic meditation could be useful for whatever you're doing in your life if you want to perform. Some people have more kind of high performance jobs that require attention to detail, maybe even some physical acts. Maybe you're on the front lines as a police officer or healthcare worker of some sort. You're going to need your motor skills and your mind, your attention to detail. And so you might like this for not just relaxation, but also for just preparing. So what is cyclic meditation? Well, apparently, I've never done this myself, but it's a form of, seems like meditation that cycles between stimulation and relaxation in a cyclical manner. A number of stimulations of varying intensity suited to different levels of stress bring out harmonious growth in tune with one's innate nature. So apparently this is a form of meditation. And I know they say yoga based, but a lot of things that say yoga based, they don't actually use yoga in the form of yoga as we see it in American culture. Yoga in its Indian form oftentimes is spoken of as meditation. So it could literally just be sitting on the floor and meditating in one form or another. So just keep that in mind. While this study more so focused on the effects of how it improved performance on this task, rather than whether it increased relaxation, I'm willing to bet that, and this isn't something that's covered in the study, I'm willing to bet that it probably has some level of improvement in relaxation on the participants compared to the control, given all the previous studies we've mentioned already on how meditation has improved relaxation and reduction in stress or PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So I guess my challenge for you is, it's not just about meditation, it's about all these other things. Find out what works for you, get that music playing, get the candles out, go for a walk, find out what works for you. Maybe it's beach sounds, hearing that wave come and go. Sometimes that works really well for me. Sometimes I combine them both and do a guided meditation with the waves rolling, and I get it for free with Insight Timer on my phone. And that's just fantastic for me. And so my challenge to you is just to do 2 minutes. Maybe it's 6 minutes. Maybe it's 3 minutes. But just do a tiny bit. I call it the nibble technique. But, you don't want to just be so intimidated by how much meditation or yoga that you don't even start. Or you do too much and you burn yourself out and then you just don't do it again for forever or many months. Just do 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. In fact, I'm going to do it with you after I finish this podcast. Hit the stop button on my recording. I want to do it with you. I'm going to find some activities. I have a candle I'm staring at. I might light that up. I have a yoga mat I'm staring at as well. Maybe I will do some yoga. Maybe just 2 minutes of yoga, 3 minutes. We don't have to do an hour like those classes. I am one person who knows how boring and long an hour can be. And so it doesn't have to be long. You don't need much. You really don't need much money to get started on a lot of these things. I'm going to try a little bit of meditation, some walking, mindfulness meditation, some music, some candles, maybe some yoga, and then just feel grateful for you all I wish you the best. I'm sending out compassion to you all, to myself as well. I know this is a tough time for all of us, so I hope your families are well. I hope we're all well, and we can all get through this. And I'm wishing you nothing but the best, the greatest happiness, the greatest success, and relationships with your family, your loved ones. And I will be signing off here. Namaste. I still have to figure out what namaste means. I don't. I know they say that at the end of yoga classes because I've been to a lot of them, but I don't know what that means. I know it's a good thing though. So namaste. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching or listening. Peace. Namaste.